Hi everyone. I'm here with my good friend Crystal Kauffman. Been friends about 14 years. It's been good. And in that time, Crystal has been mostly an entrepreneur. Has started her own businesses along the way, and it's progressed and has become something that's pretty incredible. Step by step is her business. She helps people to be seen and speak their authentic truths, both in person and online, with websites, webinars, podcasts, and social media.
Yes.
So, welcome, Crystal.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Crystal and I have been evolving over years, talking about our opinions around religion and society and patriarchy and all those kinds of things. And so I thought it would be a really good idea to bring her on to talk about her evolution. Because it's been an evolution, absolutely. And
Thank goodness.
right? Yeah. So, Crystal, let's dive into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So, talk a little bit about why you started the business that you started.
Well, it was an interesting happening because I would have never have chosen to be an entrepreneur. And, well, for 11 years ago, my corporate job decided to end my employment, and quite abruptly at such.
Yeah,
And
I
it was, I think I had poured my whole and identity into my corporate job. So it was crushing when it happened. And at the time, there really was no other jobs to be found. So I did whatever it took to feed my son. I was a solo parent at that time and needed to maintain the roof over our head. And whether I was cleaning toilets or building spreadsheets, it eventually just led me to personal development and helping with marketing and how to get businesses mostly into the coaching world and to the spiritual world, how to get seen online and how to get noticed. So that's how it all came to be. It just fell in my lap, and thank you, corporate world, for putting it there. I never would have chose it if I was just dreaming one day, and now I couldn't see doing anything but.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You're amazing at it.
Thank you.
She's helped me with my Reiki practice, and with my podcast, and with being a wedding officiant. So, yeah, it's been
That's
great.
Right, man. We've done a lot of things, haven't we? It's been a journey.
Yeah, it really has. It really has. So, I mean, so speak about what does that mean? Your authentic truth.
Well, it's an interesting time in society. I am finding authentic truth. People are often afraid to speak about who they truly are, how they truly feel. Some speak it in anger or a rising up, so to speak. But even that I don't find is this person's true, authentic voice and their opinions and values. So learning how to speak from our divine self, our powerful self, and what that looks like exactly. So specifically in business, it's like, how do you help people? How do you make a difference? What's in it for them? What is the value that you bring? Not what service do you provide? Very robotic, you know. It's more about the passion you bring, the value, the way you change people's lives and then better that. So that's what I like to hear and see when their faces light up because they've changed a world in their coaching or Reiki business or whatever. Even like I do ball hockey, and just seeing how those kids light up with everything they do in a sport. So that's what I'm passionate about.
I love that passion. That's great. That's great. So I would say then, along the lines, you have, as an unconventional thinker, you've delved very deeply into the divine masculine and feminine energies. Explain a little bit about what that means.
Okay. We're just going to open up Pandora's box right now. Hey, yeah.
Get right into it. Because if we're going to talk about patriarchy and religion, let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Yeah, let's have the conversations that people are afraid to have, scared to have. We don't know what it looks like. And so I've just made it my mission in these last few years to be curious. What does divine masculine, divine feminine mean? I felt like, for me anyways, the movement of feminism didn't feel right. There was something about it that didn't feel authentic to me. There was something harsh about it. And from when I view the feminine, it is soft, beauty, embracing the power, grace, things like that. And it felt like this feminism rise was anything but. And so I'm trying to figure out, what does that look like, and what would divine feminine look for me or feel authentic for me? And I realized, well, I can't really understand the feminism without understanding the masculine as well, and the balance that it has. So both in self, what is the true balance of that within myself, and then what does that look like in relationships as well? And in the last few years is about attracting, well, I should say I've been in a relationship now for 4 years now. So before that, it was about attracting what I would say the one would be, and then how to navigate in that, how to be my best authentic self, how to allow him to learn his authentic self, and then what does that look like?
Sure.
Yeah.
So what had intrigued you of this particular topic? Was it failed relationships and digging then deeper into yourself? Or what had happened?
At the initial part, it was not about failed relationships. It's really about, well, actually, I take that back. At the beginning, it was after many failed relationships in my experience, my life. It's like, what am I missing? What am I not understanding or figuring out? Or how and why do I keep attracting the same thing? What am I being that is attracting this? How am I showing up? If I want this, what is, like, maybe there's something I have to change so that I am this, so that it attracts this. So what does that look like? And so it just, what I recognized, it was just like kind of like hitting a brick wall over and over again of like, well, something's not working. How do we do it different? And then I really recognized I didn't have a lot of mentorship. There wasn't a lot of role models in my life that role modeled the kind of relationship that I was looking for and that I wanted.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. So then I got curious, and then, well, what do I want? Even that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question. Like, it's.
But isn't that what we have to answer if we want to be able to attract the right person into our lives?
Right.
Is what do we want?
Absolutely. And for everybody, it's going to be different. So my answer might not be the same as yours or anybody listening. And I find that I had to find my divine truth. What is it like for me to show up in my authentic voice, in the feminine, the divine feminine that I want to be? And what am I looking for in that divine masculine? And what is divine masculine and divine feminine anyways?
I was just going to get there because I mean, you've never really been a church-going person.
Never.
So you would never classify yourself as religious.
Yeah.
And yet this has become a topic of yours that you has become very passionate in your life about, that you've been very excited about, changing how you interact with men and women and finding your divine purpose, your divine femininity, and how did that happen? From not having a very religious upbringing.
Yeah. Well, there was definitely religious influence. My family was Lutheran, and my grandma had a desire and hope that we would follow.
Right.
Being the true rebellious woman I was, I'm like, that's not happening.
I don't want that religion.
Yeah. And then so I started really going down the spiritual discovery and personal development. And the interesting fact now is that I see a lot of similarities and a lot of parallels. But what I didn't like, and I've never liked, and what I understand now, is I just didn't like the structure and the paradigm of the way it was done. I believe at the very foundation and core that there's something of similarity and something to be learned that does feel authentic, and there is some truth to that there.
Right. So you're saying like the love of a possible entity or the universe is authentic. It's the structure and the power structure, really, of the church
100%.
that doesn't feel authentic.
100%. There's even, if I look at it, and I'm not extremely versed on the verses of the Bible, but there's some that I know, and I think we've just interpreted it wrong. There was some truth into what was being said, and we've twisted it. Society has twisted it, and it's not even the meaning of what that was supposed to be.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because I felt the same things. That I could see. It felt like there was an idea of this is the way things are supposed to be in sort of the patriarchal society, and how can we reinforce that? Well, let's have a religious structure that can reinforce it. That's the feeling that I've had for many years. And so I've wanted to start looking back on the history and pulling pieces apart and starting to look at where can we start changing some things and what needs to be changed. And the idea of patriarchy itself is a power structure. That's all that it is. It's a power structure, and we've all bought into it. We all believe that it's right. When it comes to men and women and their relationships, we've always said that men are right, women are wrong, because men are more smarter. All these little things that what patriarchy has taught us along the way. I'm not saying that we all believe those things anymore, but that's how patriarchy started. There's always in patriarchy somebody has to be smarter than somebody else, and it's like we start up here and then we go down here, and everybody else is the peons, sort of. That's what it feels like in patriarchy. So over the years, I found that in particular, if I was going to be able to have a relationship of some sort with a God or with myself and my own soul, I needed to figure out for myself was that God that was telling me that as a woman I'm not as good as a man? That I've been taught by schools, by religion. No, I went to be a minister and believed that I had a calling. And when I went home, back to Winnipeg, I had friends tell me that I was not called to ministry because women are not called to ministry. So then I had to somehow justify what I felt was my calling, and other men that may not have been as well spoken or whatever. They didn't have to justify their calling. All they had to say was that they were called to ministry, and it was tough. It was tough to see that. It was tough to, and so I realized that there was a lot of stuff underneath it all, and how to deal with all of that. So what that taught me was that there was a structure, that women weren't as good. If I could, I did speak in a church where it was mostly men and the patriarchy, made the decisions. And when I spoke, I actually had a woman say that I sounded as good as a man, and that I had surprised her, and wasn't sure if that was a good thing. I wasn't sure. So anyway, it's got me to this point where I've been on this path for a long time, trying to understand why it is that we have these beliefs, and how it's affected our relationship with each other, with women with women, and women with men, and men with men, and men with women. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what you have seen in terms of men and women and their relationships around this patriarchy, perhaps, discussion.
All right. Well, it's interesting because I'll just for the sake of ease, I'm going to talk about masculine and feminine energies, but masculine, oftentimes I'll use he, but it's, and then feminine is she, but that doesn't necessarily, that means that the gender, I believe in any relationship, there is always a more masculine role and a more feminine role, and that's regardless of gender, of same sex, or,
Which that in itself is different than what we speak about in relationships, in tradition, in our society.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean even if it's a man and a woman, it doesn't necessarily mean the woman is the feminine energy of a relationship. Sure. At all. So it's
like me,
right?
A little bit more masculine feel to me,
for sure,
but not intentional.
Yes,
it's just who I am. This is how I came into this world.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I have some friends that are in a male-female relationship, gender male-female, and the woman is definitely more of the masculine energy, and the man is more of the feminine energy. So nothing wrong with that. I'll speak of masculine. Sometimes I'll just say he, and but just know I mean overall. It could really mean any of them. But oh boy.
Well, even just that. How did you come to recognize that energies are different?
Well, it became even just apparent in. So the relationship that I'm currently in, I've really tried to just open my mind to be curious, because I'm really recognizing that so many people are just like butt heads all the time. I'm right. No, I'm right. And you listen to me. And I'm like, well, what would change if we were just curious a little bit? And if we were open to hearing what the other side thought. And then that started having me even question how we just do relationships, period. Right. So I recognize that a lot of the feminism stuff that's been pushed lately, it's just felt so harsh to me. It felt more like angry and right. I want to be right. And so I wanted to be like, what would it be like to be curious? And what would it be like to understand my partner? Take energies out for a second. Just like, what would it be like to respect each other in a conversation? To understand your point and your perspective. And then have them understand my point and perspective. And then somehow weave our truth into that, or what a win-win would be. So I really started, really started getting curious about that. What did that look like? And then the more I started getting some of my own help and coaching, with with coaching with some people that I realized that that is part of the feminine, is to be curious and to be loving, open, graceful. And there was some very interesting conversations that came out of just presenting with that energy versus I'm right, listen to me kind of energy.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
That's how my parents always reacted.
Right?
Yeah, I'm right. No, I'm right.
Yeah.
No, I'm right. Nobody
helps.
listened to each other.
And it helps all the time, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Because it never felt like World
Right.
War III in my
Right.
house.
Right.
Yeah.
And I actually don't want to fight. Like, I want love. I want harmony. I want understanding. I want peace, and to be loved, and to just to feel that connection with somebody. So, and I thought, if I want them to understand me, maybe I have to understand them. And
Right.
take that time to appreciate and understand where they're coming from. And maybe there's something I'm not seeing. And so even just to be open to that, maybe there's something I haven't thought about. I haven't explored. Do I think that because my parents told me to, religion told me to, society told me to, it's just the way it was? Why do I think those things? And is it working for me or not? Those are big questions.
Beautiful, though. Like if we were able to approach all of our relationships that way, friendships, family, everything.
Yep.
Then we would get a lot further, I think, in feeling loved and appreciating life, appreciating and feeling gratitude for the life that we have. I think if we were able to do all that.
And then to me, so the more I explore this way of communicating and thinking, I'm recognizing this to me feels more like the feminine energy, the divine feminine energy, that softness, the understanding, the exploration, the curiosity versus the I'm right of patriarchism that we just said it doesn't work when it's this structure and this is the way it is. And so
Okay.
Maybe we can just explore it a little bit. And
I like that.
yeah.
Well, so both of us have read the book Reframe Your Blame by S.H.E. And he suggests in the book to be able to use a way of relating to each other, a different paradigm, and he called it accountability. Could you describe that a little bit and talk about how that is a possibility for sort of a new paradigm rather than patriarchy?
Whew.
Yeah, I know, right? In only 10 seconds.
That is that's a deep topic, and one of my more passionate ones about understanding and trying to embrace and learn, as well as my partner, because what I recognize is that in any story, any situation, any event that happens, there's your version, my version. And then sometimes the truth, which is just the straight out facts.
Right.
Of what happened. Like literally just the straight facts of what happened. And your version is going to come with your emotion, your values, your beliefs, your all of your mindsets.
Right, from my family,
Right.
from what I've gained from friends.
Right.
Right.
So that'll accompany your story. My story will be all of my beliefs, values, thoughts, all of those things, and my experiences of life.
Right.
And so they will have a tainted view on what happened and the actual facts that happened.
So every event is just an event. Something just happens, but it becomes sort of drama or whatever because of our version of values and how it affects us, and we get triggered or whatever.
Right. So it's like, oh, how dare he do that? He knows, that like this assumption that we know everything, or they should know, or
Of course they should know.
Of course.
What are you talking about?
So,
Our relationships. It
right.
ended because he was supposed to know. She was supposed to know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so what accountability teaches is really that it's for every event that happens, anything that happens in our lives, and it could be something very simple or very complicated,
right.
that I have a part in how that happened, you'll have a part as to how that happened, and then that becomes parts of what formed the situation. And
right.
when things feel angry or upsetting, it's easy to blame the other person and finger point.
Right.
And accountability really is about looking at those three fingers that are pointing back at you and saying, what part did I have to play in that? And it could be as simple as I participated, I showed up, I didn't do something about it. Like, it could be something as simple as that. Or it is, bigger, I got triggered. Oh, that was my mom's voice talking. Or that, so there's something else bigger there. I reacted too harshly. I was a little bit mean. I was a little bit snippy that made them act this way to me. And so here you have like a back and forth that happens because, well, they were snippy, so I was snippy, and then boom.
Okay. And so
World War III.
So then if we were able to talk about our own accountability in a scenario, how does that change?
Right. So, okay, an argument happens that's like a little snippy. Well, are you going to do the dishes? Well, jeez. Like,
I did the dishes yesterday. I'm tired of doing the dishes. I was working all day.
Right. And so, so we've had these kind of easy conversations or easy things that have exploded.
Sure.
Let's just go with something easy. And before you know it, you're insulting each other and like, you never do anything around the house, and like, I can never annoy you. Oh, you're so cranky all the time. You're such a insert blank word. Sometimes name calling, right? And anger. And so accountability could be, yes, I left the dishes. I acknowledge that I left the dishes in the sink again, and I will do better at putting them in the dishwasher. Yes, I acknowledge that you cooked dinner. Let me clean up. Or yes, I recognize that I'm really exhausted today from my work. I acknowledge I've left the dishes on the counter. I will clean them up as soon as I possibly can. So any of these answers that you can own to your part of, I did the thing, and then what are you willing to do about that? And maybe it's nothing, and maybe your partner says, you know what, honey? Yes, you've been working really hard, and no problem, I'll just do it. And so that can come out of it too. But it's just really owning your part, and that's easier said than done, because we often don't think it's our fault. Well, I didn't do it.
It's never
my
fault.
Never. That's why there's three fingers back at you.
Right? Exactly. And I think, so from my experience and what I know about accountability, it feels like to me that could be why I say that it could be a different paradigm that we could use in relationship, because it feels like it brings balance to the relationship. Nobody has to be right or wrong. You know, it's not about patriarchy. It's not about somebody being up here and telling you this is the way it should be done. It sounds like that both people, it is a framework for all of us to get our needs met if we choose to use it.
Yeah.
At least, so would you agree with that?
Well, let's say it just puts the human in us humans again, because we're not doing things perfect. We are going to make mistakes. Like, none of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. I
God,
will.
no.
No, I'm learning all the time.
Thank God you're not, because I'm
Yeah.
not sure if we could be friends, because
Right.
I'm certainly not perfect.
Oh, I thought you were perfect. Right.
Oh,
But
right, exactly.
yeah, and just like something even with work will trigger my mood, and then I take it out on my partner. And so, just acknowledging to my partner, I'm sorry. I can tell I was extra snappy. It wasn't even you on there. It was something that client did whatever here or.
Or I was talking to my mother and she got me going again.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I recognize, and so that's when I can look and say, wow, I get triggered a lot from this client, from my mother, from that. So what is that about me? Like, what needs to be maybe looked at, explored, healed, acknowledged? What does that need to look at? Because like those are the warning signs that I say we need to look at those things. Like if you're always getting triggered by something, then that's something to look at and something to, instead of just going around with this war badge, I like to say, is like, maybe there's, what does it need? Forgiveness, acknowledgement, understanding their perspective. Like what could be done about that? And
Okay.
again, big broad strokes
really.
for topics, and some are easy and some are not so easy. Like how do you unpack perhaps 40-50 years of traumas with mom?
Right.
You know, that that sounds easier said than done, and that's why I say this is a journey, and this is not just like heal that.
Well, and it's true. I mean, what it feels like is that, you know, women's movements had tried to move the pendulum. It took a little while for it to start to move, and when it started to move, it went way over here, and people started going, well, you know, maybe we don't need men, and all that kind of discussion, right? And so now we're saying, well, maybe that was too far. Maybe we've pushed the pendulum a little bit too far, that we haven't even included men in our struggles, in our desire for balance, and our desire to have better relationships. And you know, we've bettered ourselves. We looked at ourselves and what do we want to do, and we want to have, you know, better education, and we want to do this and we want to do that. You know, if I end up being a solo parent, you know, how am I going to be able to do that better than what I would have normally done it, or whatever. We've done a lot of growing and evolving as women. And now it's well, how can we sort of, like, we didn't bring the men along to show them what our evolution was.
Right.
But
I don't know if we could have. Like, here's my thought about it is, so we recognize patriarchism doesn't work. So we flipped the script and we're going to feminists, because, well, if that's not working, then I got to try this. Right. And now, from my perspective anyway, I see that, well, that's not working either, because all feminism has done is just erase the masculine, erase the patriarchism. But there's something to be learned about the patriarchism. There's something to be learned about that masculine energy and the purposes and the values that it can bring. No different than us as females. The feminine energy needs to really learn what our power is. Where do we shine? How does that look? What is divine feminine? And so it's like you almost needed to learn both sides of the pendulum, and then now we get to balance in between. And what does that look like? Because you can't have one without the other.
No, that's true. And so it's almost like what you're saying then, from what I can understand, is we have feminism, but it taught us basically women can do things that we've been told we can't do.
Sure.
So we can go to school. We can become professionals. We can be doctors. We can be lawyers. And we can be politicians. And we can do all these things that they've told us that we couldn't do. And even vote, right? That we're actually even people in Alberta. We had to prove that first before we could do all the voting. So that was our past. We did all that. We it's like feminism told us we could push through all that.
Right.
But we were kind of doing it with masculine energy.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
And so we're doing it sort of, all we had was men to watch. This is how you be a good lawyer. This is how you be a good doctor. This is how you be a good politician. You do it the way the men did it because they were successful.
Right.
So what you're saying is that we have to find a way to do it by embracing our feminine power rather than the masculine power.
Yeah, it really is actually a balance. It's not one or the other. And now it's just as much as the feminine is learning the masculine roles, and we can do it. We can be doctors. That the men are learning also the feminine roles as well. And so it is absolutely possible, and it's not about gender. This is not about any of that, right?
Well, and I've been saying to people that patriarchy hasn't been always good for men either. Like, I mean, I know men that would rather be nurses. I know men that would rather stay at home and be with their children.
Yes.
But society shuns them to perform the way that men are supposed to perform.
Right. And that doesn't work either.
No, it doesn't.
So what I've learned is that we have a balance of masculine and feminine energies within us, and regardless of your gender, that it's within us. And then so you'll partner with the person of the yin yang of that. So let's say you have a scale of 1 to 10. Let's just keep it simple. And I probably show up more like on a 2-3 of feminine, and I'll probably attract somebody of a 2-3 masculine type of energy.
Okay.
And so there'll be some, again, regardless of gender, you're on a spectrum of, a scale of 1 to 10, and you'll attract another female who's the equivalent of that.
Right.
I should say, it is the yin yang of it, the opposite of it. So that's what they say, opposites attract. You balance that out, like you have that other end of it. So, because I think that in the end, that is part of what I recognize of this union is we need people like that. That is part of my weakness is your strength. And that's what I say to my partner, like, and I'm not talking like physical strength, like there's, for me, learning the feminine energy is about flow and intuition and just this like movement, and the masculine is more structured, logical. So you need both. Like there's times when we need to budget, and his logical brain is great at that. So it's a fact of society that there's times for both, and there's even tasks that both are needed. So we balance each other out in those things. And so learning to embrace the beauty of what those energies are and how that enhances the relationship instead of it being a bad thing.
Right. And so what it sounds like is that it's tasks according to what we're good at, not so much if I'm feminine or masculine, or I'm a man or a woman. It's tasks based on what we're good at, and also what we're just willing to do. Right. Rather than this, men take the garbage out, don't you know? Right. And women do the dishes and cook, don't you know?
Don't you know? Yes. And there's this, what I love about all of this dismantling is that we get to now form what works. And so as I've gotten curious and we've dismantled, it's like, what does work? Does it work for you to do the dishes or me to do the dishes? Let's keep it simple. And then who does it work like to who does the finances? Or what does it look like to have discussions, or who takes care of the kids, or who handles it? And there's just...
It's amazing.
Yeah. There's just certain things that I'm more naturally inclined to know and do, and there's things that he is more naturally inclined to know and do. And so why not embrace those roles, and then we try to equal out the balance of, so hey, if you're cooking supper, I'll do the dishes, and instead of being the kitchen is the woman's domain.
Right.
You know, that those kinds of
Right.
thoughts.
Right. And so then your household becomes balanced and equal.
And there's times I'm the breadwinner, and there's times he's the breadwinner and of the family, and so then the other person steps in as the support of the family. So again, it's if we look at the family as the unit versus how much I'm putting in or you're putting in, or I don't need a man, I can just buy myself, I can raise my own kids, I can, like, you know, pay for everything. And yeah, I can do that. Like, I can physically do those things. I have raised my son on my own. And you know what? It is a whole heck of a lot easier, funner, lovingly. Just, oh, I have more energy at the day having a partner that is truly supportive in that co-creation of that versus I'll just do it all by myself, because holy moly, it's tiring doing everything by yourself. So
Exactly. And I think, I mean, really, if I want to think about it, one of the things that I think, regardless of what happened, I think what COVID taught us is that we need each other,
oh
right?
my gosh,
Like just
yes.
a reminder of, hey, wait a minute, we're in this shit together, or we're in this stuff together, we're in this life together. Like, let's do this together. How can we support each other, right? So, well, we have tackled a huge, huge, huge topic, but I think we did it with some grace and some ease. And thank you very much for joining me on this journey.
Yeah. Each one of these topics are so deep, and
It very much is.
We could
Almost feels like this was an introduction to more.
100%.
Right?
So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, folks, for joining us too. This is about our evolution, all of our evolution. And we're in this together. We're learning about how to be better people, better partners, better leaders,
Better selves.
better selves, getting to know who we are and who do we want to be if we're able to crack it open, just to take away the patriarchy and the religion and what our families have taught us, and who do we really want to be and who are we underneath it all. So if you are enjoying these topics, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.
Yes.